Boy, have I got a banger episode for you. We're going to be testing the Team 17 collection and the Pico Collection 3 in the hope that it gives you some answers on whether or not you should buy. We're going to test every game. Let's get into it. There's a sure tranquility when it comes to playing Kingpin bowling on the Amiga. Oh, wait a minute, we're on the Evercade versus, of course we are. This game, there's not a great deal to say about it for me personally. I do really like the sound, the clanking of the bowling balls hitting the pins, as you'll see here. Of course, Kingpin bowling existed way before Wii Sports did, and being able to lob your nunchuck through the window as you're trying to bowl the ball. That aside, Kingpin bowling is quite relaxing and you can play with your friends or you can play against the CPU. I really like the different things you can do. You can create new players, you can have an arcade series, you can just bowl for fun with absolutely, well, nothing to do other than bowl. It is what it says on the tin, and for that it's a solid 10 out of 10. But if you want something a bit more challenging or you struggle to concentrate, Kingpin bowling might not be for you, as it does become fairly monotonous after a while playing. But I can see why it did get a spot on the Team 17 cartridge for the Evercade. It runs really nicely on the Versus. I didn't encounter any issues. Let me know, guys, what you think of Kingpin bowling. All-terrain racing is up next, and if you're a fan of Micro Machines, you're definitely gonna be a fan of this. But I think this has a charm to it. I actually love the fact that there's other Team 17 games like advertised as part of the level. Like, there's so much to see on these races, let alone learning, you know, the layout of the map so you can try and battle for first place. I mean, it does really pack a nice punch, and I think in terms of nostalgia, this was one that was quite popular back in the day. There are, of course, many levels to choose from. I say many, there's actually 3, but they all differ in terms of their aesthetics and difficulty, and of course you can tweak your car and you can tweak the tyres, etc, etc. I also really loved this because you start in first place, which gives me a bit of a handicap because, as you can see, I'm absolutely shocking here, rocking 5th place. But nonetheless, at least I can say that I was first at some point throughout this gameplay. As a general tip on all games, if you press select, it does bring up this virtual keyboard, and from there you can press escape and it does take you back to the main menu if you want to, I don't know, change the track or whatever it is. Of course, to get back to the normal menu as seen here, you just press the menu button on your Evercade Versus controller. So with its bright popping sprites, funky little colour palette, really easy to master gameplay, all-terrain racing is a welcome addition to the Team 17 cartridge. But this next game, in fact this next series, this next 3 games that you're about to see, are in a league of their own, I think. Alien Breed 2, the horror continues. For me, this is one of the most popular and well-known Team 17 franchises from the Amiga days, from the 90s. You might have a different opinion. I mean, of course, there's worms, but I'm talking specifically the coolness of this, the vibe of this, the synonymous sprites of xenomorphs, which aren't xenomorphs of course because that would be copyright, but it's pretty clear that Alien Breed as a franchise is heavily influenced by the Aliens movies, and of course I am a huge fan. So for me, playing this game just puts me in a bit of a xenomorph slaying mood, and I always end up wanting to watch the films after I've played these games. Out of this entire cartridge, playing this game and the following 2 games were my definite highlights, but of course it depends what your tastes are. You might not actually like this. You might be a little bit baffled at the top-down nature of it. For me, I love a good top-down game, so maybe I'm a little bit biased with the Alien Breed games.
Player 1 has been...
Am I the only one that gets goosebumps at that intro? Probably not. We're down to the original now, and this was the first Alien Breed game I ever played. Again, it's that classic formula of top-down, you take the form of a marine, you've got to kill lots of aliens, although you'll see that there was a bit of a drought of aliens until this part. Hooray! Aliens to kill. Anyway, after we've wiped out certain rooms of aliens, we've collected credits and keys, we move forward, and you've got to be very careful with your keys because once they run out it can be very, very annoying to access some of the other areas that aren't necessary to complete the level. You might just want to access areas to, I don't know, get some health. So you've got to be a little bit tactical here on how you utilise your keys, but I really, really like that. It was in this part in particular that I always, even back in the day, I remember, do I go in there? I've made the mistake many of times of seemingly running out of keys and running around this first level on wondering where the heck I go. But this works. It works really well. I think the pixel art again looks absolutely gorgeous. Maybe the black dark chasms in between the rooms, as you can see, are a little bit lackluster, but back in the day that didn't really matter. For me, this is all about nostalgia and being able to play this handheld if you're on an Evercade handheld, or kicking back on your Versas if you don't want to set up your Amiga. This is an absolute treat. And of course, Alien Breed Tower Assault. There's not much else I can say about Alien Breed. We've said it all. It's top down, you shoot aliens, you collect keys, it's overhead, you move from room to room. What you'll notice is slightly different aesthetics and art styles. Example here, we're indoors, we've got this just crazy kind of laboratory look right there. You saw the bodies on the bed. I mean, it really is quite a cool game. I love this overhead map system here. That is massively useful. And of course, I always found lots of health very useful on Tower Assault. So what would the Team 17 franchise be without Alien Breed? And of course, what would the Amiga be without Alien Breed? And now we can enjoy it from our gorgeous Evercade handhelds, if not the Evercade Versas.
Short warning, energy low. Smart card message follows.
Another absolute charmer right now, Arcade Pool. Sometimes the simplest games are the best games. One of the things that I still enjoy today were the sounds of playing this, just the clanking of the pool balls. It just felt hypnotic. So I've sped up the gameplay here because I want you to see how close to the wire this actually gets. I'm player 1 going for red versus the AI of Steve Healy, and just check about, just kind of check it. He's like wiping me out here. I'm absolutely terrible at this game, but I thought I was in with a shot, no pun intended. You can see he's polished all his yellow balls off. So I'm gonna let the rest of this one play out. This is awesome. Darn it, I lost, but I absolutely love this game. Oh, here we go. the arduous and sometimes controversial debate of fighting games on the Amiga. How good were they? Well, most of the time they were absolutely shocking. Dare I even mention the disastrous port of Street Fighter 2, for example. But other games like Body Blows really tried to capitalise on that, and I say tried, this isn't a bad game at all. It's got a great selection of characters. I think the backgrounds, albeit very static, look fairly decent, and you can see here that we've got Turbo 2 mode on. That's right, there's 3 turbo levels including off, 1 and 2. So it just depends how you want to play. It's a very solid game, and when I say solid, I mean it's difficult. I didn't win one of my games throughout this entire playthrough, but nonetheless, it was really cool. One of the things I did have like real struggles with was playing it with a controller, because I forgot that it's like the Amiga. If you were to play with a joystick, it's 1-2 button kind of combos, and it was for me just learning the configurations on like an 8-button control pad. So I had fun with this. It's not one that I'm going to necessarily sit down and play again on my Evercade, but you guys might really enjoy it.
I'm sorry about that.
Full Contact is unfortunately not full of promise. This is another really, I guess, subpar fighting game. It's not terrible. There's some things that I do like about this. The graphics are okay. They're not an absolute disaster. But the gameplay itself feels incredibly odd, particularly with the jump mechanic, with this weird pose and the ability to jump what's seemingly 20 feet in the air and practically moving from left to right of the entire level. I mean, what even is that? It adds no value to the gameplay other than it could become a complete annoyance and prevent you from kind of whipping out a combo. Speaking of combos, I struggled to get any combos in. It was just this kind of kick mechanic and the odd punch, but the punch seemed like a fluke. So this is not great. Full Contact, again, I can see why they've put it on. For some people, I'm sure you'll get a reasonable experience out of this. If anything, it will make you laugh. The games do go on for absolute forever. The health meters just seem to marginally go down with the full contact that you make. So just be mindful that it's not great in terms of its fighting mechanics. Now, when you've beat a fighter, you can get the opportunity to go into training and you can upgrade your character very loosely. Here's my efforts on the training level. Yep, pretty shocking. Almost as shocking as the gameplay itself. My efforts were thwarted there. So this is Full Contact. I'm eager to read some of your wisdom and some of your experiences of maybe a bit of playing this from back in the day. I won't be playing it again on my Evercade, but nonetheless, we've demoed it for you. Hands up if you want a gorgeous looking shmup game. Now hands up in the comments if you want a ridiculously difficult shoot 'em up game. This game is incredibly frustrating. You get one life and then you go all the way back to the beginning of the level to try and blitz through again. You need the agility of Bruce Lee to be good at Project X. Back in the day, this did get a lot of flack for being incredibly difficult, and I'm going to let the entirety of the remainder of my gameplay play through because for me, it wasn't that bad. Now, you can obviously collect your power-ups, which gives you multi-diagonal, you get the kind of literal diagonal shots that you can see from the projectiles there, which do make things a hell of a lot easier. And the variety of enemy does come in at a reasonable time. You'll see very shortly that we go into an asteroid belt. Oh, perfect timing on the voice over there. And again, they kind of act as the enemies. One hit from them and it is game over. The pluses for me are the visuals. I do think it looks really pretty. I do think it looks really nice. There's that kind of parallax scrolling effect with the kind of background there. So it's a nice looking game. Now, if you're one of those people that has the agility of Bruce Lee, then you're in for an absolute treat. I can assure you that, and you're going to enjoy this very much on your Evercade. I've said this before, Quack is an absolute blinder of a game. The one thing that I don't like about it is it's got this slightly grainy colour palette. I think this would have been better with a little bit more of a brighter colour palette, almost a neon-esque colour palette. But that aside, this game is fantastic. You don't necessarily need the agility that you do on Project X, but there is a fair amount of agility required to be able to dodge the enemies and calculate your jumps and falls to avoid getting hit. You basically have to collect all of the fruit and the keys on the screen and then move to the next level. And speaking of levels, there's a gorgeous variety that's going to keep you coming back for more until the cows come home. So I'm extremely happy with this. So that was the Team 17 collection. Before we dive into conclusions, we're going to take a look at every game on Pico Collection 3. Forty Wings is definitely the most visually impressive game on Pico Collection 3. Of course, this is a PlayStation 1 port, and it really does show the capability of the Evercade being able to run a 32-bit game like this really smoothly with absolutely no glitches noted. So the premise of the game is quite cool actually. There's lots of different worlds. I only got as far as the first. We dive into this haunted house. You can collect Zeds as your health, and you can collect different things, different cogs as well, to be able to open different doors to access other parts of the level. So it does feel like there's kind of levels within levels. It's almost like that Mario 64 where you have to collect stars to be able to open different doors again to progress further. It's a really nice formula actually, and like I said, this is probably visually the best looking game. If anything, it's probably worth buying this cartridge just to be able to experience this on your Evercade. But rest assured guys, because there was another game that I'd never played on this cartridge that really did impress me, and it's not exactly what I would have picked for myself. Legend of Wukong looked like a game that I was going to enjoy when I accessed it from the Evercade menu. But what I found were laborious text boxes popping up, not a clear kind of direction on where to go or what to do, and this frustrated me. It frustrated me so much. It kind of like didn't give me that hook that I really wanted at the beginning of a game that said, hey, continue to play me. So I was very loosely playing this. It was a very basic test. I didn't enjoy it whatsoever, but that doesn't mean to say that you're not going to enjoy Legend of Wukong. The visuals are there, but unfortunately it just lacked some charm for me. Next up is Metal Mech Man and Machine, which is very much in the vein of what would look on face value as a really cool NES game. I think if you spend a bit of time with this game, you could really learn the mechanics and really learn to love this game. But right off the bat, again, I didn't feel that hook. You play as a mech and you walk along. It's very kind of one-dimensional. You're just kind of on the floor most of the time, or at least what I experienced in my playtest. You can kill enemies by jumping on them, or you can shoot projectiles at them. It took me a while to realise that you can actually shoot up as well, and you can shoot diagonally. And I will say that the projectiles are quite small, so it's very, very difficult to see them. I would have liked like a big fireball or something that you could really see. It would have made the experience that little bit more tangible. So unfortunately, I struggled initially with this. But again, I'm being honest here, this is a playtest and these are my initial thoughts. This is Motor City Patrol, quite possibly the most frustrating and boring game on Pico Collection 3. It looks like a very, very early demo of Grand Theft Auto on the PlayStation 1. The mechanics are super sketchy, I was crashing everywhere I go. Obviously that's a gigantic fence, you can't go through there, but there were some smaller kind of like little nodules on the road that I would crash into and think, well, that's a bit silly. I struggled to realise what I had to do. You can shoot out of the window, but there's nothing really to shoot at. You come across other cars, but it's very few and far between. I don't know what happened here, but clearly I shot someone and it was game over. So I was like, what is actually going on here? What am I playing? And the colour palette's pretty awful as well. But yeah, I'm sorry. These last few games just really haven't hit it off for me with the Pico Collection 3, but there's some good ones coming up, I can assure you. Seeing the Acclaim logo gives me so much of a nostalgia tingle, it warms my soul. We have an arcade game next because this is Punch King Arcade Boxing, very much in the vein of Super Punch Out on the Super Nintendo. I do think this game looks absolutely fantastic. I love that this is set in London and you can see Big Ben off in the background and Tower Bridge. It's cool, you know, I really like it. I think you'll have a lot of fun with this, especially if you enjoyed Super Punch Out on the Super Nintendo.
Time up!
Radical Bikers is a hidden gem on the Pico Collection 3. When I first started off here, I thought we'd be delivering pizzas in a Paperboy style kind of gameplay, but that's not the case. We have to get to the end of the level within a certain time limit whilst collecting power-ups to boost your score. This game looks tremendous and it sounds really cool too. So it's that nice isometric style, arguably a little bit of all-terrain racing-esque here, but it's not as difficult, weirdly. I did start off pretty badly, but I actually took to this and played this the most out of all the games on the Pico Collection. So 40 Winks I think looks the absolute best, but this is definitely your hidden gem when it comes to buying this cartridge, so make sure you kind of definitely pick this up and definitely play this game. I think between 40 Winks and this cartridge for me is worth it alone. Now as you can see here, we crossed the finish line, which means we got to deliver the pizza with this massive camel toe on display. Camel toes to one side, we embark on the second level, which as you can see does look very different. So they've not carbon copied the same old level, and check out this one. This has to be the biggest farm in the world, right? Thank goodness for Radical Bikers on this game collection. I'm eager to play some more of this, but I want to know if you've played it. Let me know in the comment section. Stanley, the Search for Dr. Livingston reminds me like a really cool ZX Spectrum game, very much in the vein of Dizzy, when you go into these like buildings here. I don't know why, but when I played this I was like, oh my goodness, this takes me back to 5-year-old Gemma playing Dizzy on her ZX Spectrum, even though we're not an egg and this looks nothing like Dizzy. So you've basically got to meander around the different environments in the search for Dr. Livingston by asking different people and just exploring. It's a cool game. It's not a game that I would yearn to play again, but it does intrigue me because I do think the graphics look really, really cool. And I think a lot of you guys, especially the specky hardcore fans, will really, really like this. Alright, let's dive into some Super Bubble Pop. I think the sound for me is where it's at on this. This is the lore. In terms of what you need to do, it can be quite difficult. It took me a couple of goes before I actually beat the first level. I'll read from the Evercade's website. I think they encapsulate it really well. Quote, "Let's get popping in this upbeat 32-bit puzzler for the Evercade. In Super Bubble Pop, you'll groove to the beat whilst matching and clearing an ever-advancing stack of coloured bubbles." End quote. Be mindful, guys, this does get really, really fast, and I think the table doesn't look that big, so it does seem incredibly fast, especially when the bubbles are coming right down towards you. Of course, if they do get right down towards you, that is the end and you need to start again. This game looks really cool, but it doesn't really appeal to me. It's a little bit, there's too much kind of going on. I think we need to kind of strip it back and go for like a Columns-esque and Tetris-esque kind of vibe. But this just seems to complicate that formula. So it's a no from me, but if you're a puzzle fan, this is going to be an absolute banger. Here we go, a beat 'em up. Actually, this is pretty slow. This is how fast you move. I think graphically this is incredibly impressive. And when it first came on, I was like, whoa, this is going to be like a Golden Axe ripoff. But I'm not quite sure what's going on. It's just too slow for me. I wanted a little bit more fast action, and the sword movement and mechanic, it's just like a one animation and you've kind of seen it. Well, that's all I played anyway, so who knows, maybe you can level up and maybe you can really make your character super cool and have different colours, but if you're anything like me, I like to be hooked within the first couple of minutes of gameplay, and unfortunately, this didn't do it for me. Zero Tolerance has such a gnarly introduction, and there's so many cool characters to select from in this really decent first-person shooter. Back in the day, this was all over the magazines, and I was leafing through some copy of Sega Power recently and seeing a lot of really positive articles about this. The interface can be a little bit busy, as you can see here, and the actual game itself, the FPS portion, is incredibly small. But it's a formula that does work. I do need to get used to this a little bit more. I have, spoiler alert, just purchased this on the Sega Mega Drive when I did a recent retro game hunt that will be released within the next couple of weeks. But again, if you're into your FPS or you want to try something different outside of the Doom franchise and the Doom formula, then definitely check out this on your Pico Collection 3 on your Evercades, or snag yourselves a copy on the Sega Mega Drive.
Critical.
So that's 20 games tried and tested for you. We'll start with Team 17. Clearly for me, the Alien Breed trio on there is definitely my favourite games. Is it worth buying? For me, 100%. And remember, disclaimer, I did get these for free, but if I didn't, I was 100% committed to buying this cartridge. As you guys know, I am a huge Amiga fan, and I absolutely live and breathe retro games, but in particular the Team 17 stuff on the Amiga really did shine. But of course, Quack is an absolute banger as well, and I do find myself getting lost every time I have played that game in testing, whether it's on the Amiga, the CD32, whatever it is. I've just been absolutely lost playing that game, and before you know it, you're on level 12, 13, 14, and for me it's a real time sinker. In terms of the Pico collection, there's only 2 games that I really like, and that was Radical Racers and of course 40 Wings. 40 Wings, I've never actually played it before, so to be able to try it and feel really immersed with the gameplay, I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it does go for a relative amount of money on the PlayStation 1, so if you want a little bit of value for money and you want to try that, the Pico collection is definitely going to be for you. And of course Radical Racers, it felt initially like it was going to be a paperboy game, but it's not. You've just got to get to the end of the level whilst collecting bonuses and dodging all the cars in the meantime. So those 2 games for me were really the only 2 games that I would have that I really like. Had I have bought that, I would have been disappointed, but I know that everybody watching this episode is going to have different tastes, so who knows, but I've tried and tested them all now for you guys. You've got your gameplay, and there we go. So please leave a like, rate, and please subscribe, and guys, have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. I need a few seconds of your time to tell you about channel memberships. If you guys want to become a channel member, click join from the main page or the second link in the description. There are 3 tiers, all with different perks for you if you want to become a team member. Thanks for your time. Let's continue with the video.